Amco Cup, they were interesting times, and in those days the Brisbane clubs would play in their own right against some of the Sydney clubs and various country divisions. So it was a big knockout competition. And I remember in the mid-70s we played Penrith. Brothers played Penrith in a game at Lang Park, midweek game, televised, so it was pretty big stuff. And Penrith at the time were in the top 4 in the Sydney comp. It was early stages of the season. It was probably about 5 games in, maybe 5 or 6 games in. They had Mick Stevenson, the commentator guy who's works over in England at the moment. Ashurst, the big back row, so they had a very good side. Russell Hughes, who played for Valleys here. They had some good players. Top, as I say, top 4 in Sydney. And we beat them that night. I was really happy with the way, as I recall, the way I played. The whole team played well and I was happy with my game. But the guy who was a standout was Chipsy Harrington. And for people in that era who remembers Chipsy, may he rest in peace, he had an absolute, it was as if this was the game of his life. And Chipsy was a bit of a roly-poly sort of guy, but he just steamrolled him that night. He got the player of the match, and that was one of the big reasons we won that game. We put in a good team performance, but Chipsy was terrific. So that was quite a milestone, because my understanding is that was the first time a Sydney club side had ever been beaten by a team outside of Sydney, certainly a Brisbane club team, in an official match. There'd been some post-season games and pre-season trials and that where there'd been some upsets. But that was a very big occasion for Brothers, and we enjoyed that. My recollection is we went on then to play Balmain at Leichhardt Oval in the Amco Cup, and they beat us in the wet. I think Alan McMahon was playing fullback at the time, and he could kick the ball like a mule, and they were going about 60 metres downfield in the wet, and we were kicking them about 16 metres, I think. So we were sort of always on the back foot. But it was certainly a time when Brisbane club football stood up. It wasn't then until later years, as I recall, that a Brisbane rep side with Wally and Gino and all the boys in there ended up winning an Amco Cup, but that was a rep team. Yeah, we went close a few times for the big one in my time at Brothers in the 70s, but just went close but never quite made it. But we did get a little bit of silverware. In the early 70s we won the President's Cup. Now in those days there were 8 sides in the Brisbane comp, and we played each of the sides 3 times. So there were 21 games, and at the end of the first round the 2 leading teams, when they next played in the second round, played what was called the President's Cup, and we played that day and won the silverware, which was great. But as I say, we were close for the big one, but a few years later, but never quite got there. Yeah, retirement, it came pretty early for me actually. I was only 27 when I retired. I'd played all my career with Brothers up until 1977, and then got a big offer, if you like, from Nerang, footy club of all places down the coast, and went down there, and a couple other Brothers players went down there as well. So in 78 we played on the coast. Ian Douth was one of them, Bobby Cock was another, and we actually won the comp on the Gold Coast. And I look back, we had a very good footy team, and I often had wondered how might we have gone even against the premiers of the Brisbane comp at the time. And interestingly enough, Tony Darcy, who became a Wallaby, was an 18-year-old centre for us for a couple of games down at Nerang that year. So, yeah, that was it for me. 27. I'd had a few injuries, and I got an opportunity to get into the rugby league media. Yeah, I retired at 27. Well, one of my great loves post-playing was certainly as a commentator on rugby league. I had the pleasure of doing it for over 30 years, which is a long time in that industry, but I enjoyed my time. I started out initially on the old Channel O, actually, and for those people who can remember back that far, it was 1979 that I first started, and George Doniger was the guru of rugby league callers on TV at the time. George Lovejoy was the great radio caller who coined the phrase rugby league football, the greatest game of all. And I got an opportunity to work with Channel O and did a couple of years with George. We had a 3-hour program on a Saturday morning, so there was a huge... The rights had just changed from Channel 7 to Channel O, as I recall at the time, so O were keen to really put a lot into it, and they did for a couple of years. And then I got the opportunity to do some work with the ABC, did about 10 years with the ABC, both radio and a bit of television on the Brisbane Rugby League. And then a great 2 or 3 years, the first years of the Broncos, I again went back to work with Channel 10, commentated with Billy J. Smith and David Fordham. May he rest in peace, Fordo. We had some great times and a good commentary team there. Tony Durkin was on that commentary team as well, and Terry Kennedy from time to time. So that was the first few years of the Broncos, and then Channel 9 obviously came back in to take that on. So again, I went back to the ABC and worked for, well, nearly 20 years straight with the ABC, doing, as I say, both radio and television. So it was something I just loved to do. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I loved my footy to start with, but just loved commentating. And I think one of the reasons I perhaps had a longevity in commentary was that I started out as like a expert commentator, but then moved into a bit of a dual role as a caller commentator. In some way, that put me in a bit of a unique category. There's not too many guys who have played the game at a high level that end up actually calling the game. Rex Mossop was often called a bit of a dinosaur because Rex was a dual international, but he called the footy as well as commentating. I guess I'm a bit of a throwback to that era as well. So just a great time. I just loved doing it, it was some great time. So it meant working 6 days a week to do the commentary one on the weekends, but I wouldn't have given it up for anything. I enjoyed both the analysis of it and, as I say, the calling of it. Yeah, after I retired, I did quite a bit of commentary, but also did quite a bit of coaching. I coached at Queensland Uni for a couple of years, and a great couple of years where they had a team, a rugby league team in the second division, and still very good mates with a lot of those people who've gone on to be very successful in their own careers. But also coached at Brothers. In the early 90s, I took on the job in 92 and 93. Now, that was the era when Brothers were a little bit nomadic, if you like, looking for a home, and we played out of Brothers Rugby Union for a while, and then we played a bit out at Bray Park also. So they were challenging times, but I certainly always enjoyed the coaching side of things, and it was a good era. Well, these days I'm sort of semi-retired. My main career over the last 40 years has been as an engineer. I've been involved in road and bridge construction right throughout southeast Queensland. I guess the pinnacle of my full-time career was I was the general manager on the Gateway Bridge project, the $2 billion project there for 8 years, heavily involved in the business case, procurement of the job, and then the delivery of it. And it's the closest thing from a work perspective I've experienced that's near a footy team or a sporting team. There was just this great feeling about that project and the teams that worked on it, both the contractor and the owner of the business. So I had great 8 years involved in that project, the back end of my career, and now I'm just doing a bit of part-time work for Queensland Motorways. They've got some big projects on at the moment, and I've got some strategic input to that. So life's good. I'm trying to play a bit of golf, not too well I might add, but I love a game of golf, and trying to get a bit of exercise in as well. What Brothers bring, as I see it, is uniqueness. No other entity could bring what the Brothers bid might bring, and that is the link into all those other Brothers clubs and the strength of that Brothers fraternity. We know how strong it is at junior level. We know how strong it is when the confraternity gets together and play the confraternity shield. There are still some strong Brothers clubs senior level throughout the state. Brisbane obviously isn't in that position at this stage, but I think it's uniqueness, and a lot of success is often grown out of being unique. If you're different to anyone else and you've got all the other ingredients, you can bring something to the table that no one else can. And I think that's the key for Brothers. How the bid team, and I know they're well organised and they're looking at all the strategic planning as we speak, how they marry that into gaining that huge regional support you need. And obviously it'll be Brisbane based, with the idea, as I understand it, to play games further afield throughout Queensland and maybe even further afield than that. The key, I think, will be to make sure that there is this regional base, that you've got your supporter base in southeast Queensland. And I think the concept's great. There'll be some competition, as we know, from not only within Queensland and southeast Queensland, but nationally. But I applaud the guys for putting together or putting the effort in at this stage to just see where it might go. There's plenty of people around who perhaps don't necessarily think it's going to work, but if you work hard enough at it, you just never know. Brothers NRL, we can do this.